Today we have a very special session, and I am honored to introduce Clara Angelina Diaz. Clara Angelina Diaz is a master certified coach, trainer, business advisor, and author. Her book, Create Your Best Year One Day at a Time, has also been adapted into an inspiring self-coaching program. In her private practice, Clarifying LLC, Clara specializes in working with leaders across various industries with a special focus on attorneys, first-time entrepreneurs, and women of color around the world. Clara also is the founder of the Certified Coaches Network with the purpose of promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the coaching industry. Now, a fun fact, Clara is a professional painter, and if you look on the wall behind her, is actually a piece of her artwork. Now, with that, I will hand it over to Clara Angelina Diaz.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Lisa, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today and spending your evening or your time anywhere in the world that you could be. I am so thankful. I want to first invite you all to take a breath with me and anchor yourself in this moment as we get prepared to learn about how to foster psychological safety in the workplace with coaching. So as Lisa mentioned to you, I am an executive coach and business advisor, and my fun fact is that I am a professional painter, and I had a parallel career as a visual artist. And you can see my butterfly painting in the background. Today, I am also joined by three of my dear coaches who are graduates of my coaching program and part of my coaches network. Leona Martin, who you will hear from later, Massiel Eversley, and Shaunda Lewis. I want to tell you a little bit about these three women before we start, so you know a little bit about them and look forward to hearing from them. Leona Martin is a seasoned career coach and recruiter in the healthcare industry with over 25 years of experience. Massiel Eversley is a former nurse leader, regional director with one of the top 3 hospitals in the world. And Shaunda Lewis, as you can see here, is a specialist in decolonization and a social scientist and historian. These three ladies will be sharing with us and going deeper into the concepts that we will be speaking about today. So my first question to you is, when you hear the term psychological safety in the workplace, what comes up for you? What is the feeling that comes up for you, or what does psychological safety mean to you? I love to hear some interaction from you and just to see and get a temperature of the room. When you hear the word psychological safety, what comes up for you? So the outcome of this workshop today is for you to learn some ways, for you to learn ways to help your coaching clients, to help your employees to embrace a new style of management and leadership, with the goal of allowing this model to drive fresh energy, innovation, and commitment. And in today's rapid world, with so much change, with the pandemic, with everything going on, there's so much disruption going on for leaders. And we know that leadership now is so much more about working together, empowering our people shoulder to shoulder, and not so much and way less about command and control. And in this workshop, my goal is that you'll be able to embrace a bit more with coaching what it looks like for you to be able to shift the mindset of a leader or a manager with some support and guidance to allow them to create a more psychologically safe workplace and to help their employees to adapt to this changing, crazy environment that we're living in right now. So to begin, speaking about to begin speaking about psychological safety, it's worth first talking about what is organizational culture. And there are many different ways that organizational culture can be established and communicated. I like to think of organizational culture as an invisible spirit that sits through an organization. And it's that those unspoken rules that allow someone to be successful or to be unsuccessful in a workplace. Is, in this environment, things are done this way, or they're not done this way, or in this environment, when the leader says show up at 3 p.m., in one culture, it could be exactly at 3 p.m. It could be 10 minutes before 3 p.m., or if it's okay to show up 5 minutes later. Those unspoken rules are what make up an organizational culture. And so I love this model of explaining exactly what psychological safety is by also showing what it's not. And so after I go through this with you, I want to share a little bit of a personal story of my own of why I chose this topic and why it is so near and dear to my heart. So when we talk about psychological safety, what we're talking about is that it's a term that was coined by Amy Edmondson of Harvard Business School, where I had the pleasure of also working alongside with Shaunda Lewis, who you'll be hearing from a little bit later. Psychological safety, meaning that in your workplace, you feel comfort in admitting mistakes, learning from failure, a place where everyone openly shares their ideas, and that will lead to better innovation and better decision making, because you actually have information that allows you to make better decisions. So what is the opposite of that? Like we have all felt it when we have been in a workplace where we fear admitting mistakes. We don't want to let people know that we even need help. There's a culture of blaming others. People are less likely to share different points of views because they're quite afraid. Going back to the first point, people fear admitting mistakes. They just fear speaking up. And people are mostly wanting to agree with each other, common knowledge effect. Everybody agrees, everything is great, everything is wonderful. And then when people walk away from the meeting, they're talking about the things that should have been spoken at during the meeting. And there's these really unhealthy triangles that are created where information is going to the wrong places. And it's not helpful nor effective. So there is definitely the business case for psychological safety, that if a leader and all of leadership within an organization and its employees invest in creating a psychologically safe workplace, that they are going to be more positive. There's a more positive outcome. There's more sales. There's so much positive impact that can happen. But what I want to make today is not just the business case, but the moral case for psychological safety, because we all wake up every day and give our precious life energy to companies it's very unfair to feel like your voice doesn't matter. So in what I'm proposing today are 3 steps that an individual can take, and how coaching can help to foster psychological safety within these 3 steps. I promised y'all a story, so I'll tell you that right now. So one of the reasons why psychological safety is so important to me is because I once had what I felt was my dream job. I worked for an individual who was a professor of a very, very prestigious organization. This individual was working on a mission that I loved so much. However, every time that I would raise my hand to share what I saw or new ideas or ways that we could implement our model in different cities or do things differently, I was very much ignored or looked down upon. And it was everything but psychological safety. And so it was at a loss for myself and a loss for the company that I ended up leaving. And I obviously now work for myself. I have my own company, but part of that, of the reason for that, was because I worked at so many places where the leaders failed to provide a sense of psychological safety. And so I imagine that many of you have experienced the same, where you have been in an organization where your voice was just not heard, or you were promised that your voice was going to be heard, but nothing ever came of it. And you felt undervalued. Many of the executives that I coach do their best to prevent people from leaving their place of work and trying to make people feel important. But sometimes it's very hard as an individual, as a leader, because you don't have the necessary tools or the understanding to know how you can create psychological safety, or in plain terms, to help people feel like their voice actually matters. So I propose that there are 3 steps that you can take to create psychological safety in your organization. And I want to talk about each of these as it pertains to using coaching skills in order to make these happen. So the first one is for you as a leader to set the stage. The second is inviting participation. And the third is responding proactively. After I go through the information that I have with these, like I said in the beginning, I'm going to bring in my 3 experts that are going to share a little bit more and go a little bit more in depth about these. So the first one is setting the stage. So when I mean setting the stage, what I'm talking about is the leader being the one that creates the stage where all things occur. What I mean by that is that a leader wants to encourage its employees to be candid with one another when sharing feedback and ideas. Leaders need to make the logical case for speaking up, setting the stage for employees to openly discuss issues around diversity and inclusion, can connect back to goals of effective collaboration that produces exceptional products and services. And of course, this is way easier said than done. Right? When we talk about leaders encouraging employees to be candid with one another, that requires for that leader to be able to provide proper training on exactly how do you give constructive feedback that is helpful, solution-oriented, and that actually moves someone forward to where they want to go. We want to stay away from being accusatory, from being violent with another person in saying, like, it's your fault, right? We really want, as leaders, we really want to provide our employees not just with encouragement, but with actual training and support, safety, and bravery to be able to really be able to give feedback. Additionally, like, setting the stage is also about reframing failure. So when someone in your organization makes a mistake, how are you going to help that person to actually learn from their mistakes? How are you going to be able to really hold back from your initial knee-jerk reaction to want to accuse, to want to maybe get upset, or like just think about the dollars lost? You want to actually try to figure out a way to have that person really learn from their mistakes, to empower them to make a better decision the next time. organizations that are afraid, right, to admit failure or to create an environment where is fearful to admit failure, no one really learns from the mistakes. And we cannot move down a more productive, safe, or innovative path if we're not really learning. If just like a child, if you're afraid to make a mistake, you're not really going to move forward or learn. I personally have a 1-year-old who's learning how to walk. And it's like if every single time my child got up and tried to walk, I'll yell at him or try to make him feel bad, he's not going to keep on trying. And so this is like, I think one of the most important steps is for the leader to really create an environment where people can be honest, where people can make mistakes, but also empower their employees to reframe that failure into learning. Secondly, one of the ways to create psychological safety in an organization is by inviting participation and adopting a mindset of situational humility and engaging in proactive inquiry. And so I have this picture here of all these different types of, well, mostly women here, of different colors, where and I love this term, situational humility, where we have to really think about, after a leader sets the stage by framing the reasons why it is so important that we express candor, that we are honest. Leaders need to encourage employees to engage in open conversation and feedback, and be that first person that is actually doing that, not just paying lip service, but actually you being that person. Inviting participation needs to happen in a way that people find compelling and genuine, right? That is sensitive and is resonating with what is needed in the moment. And so there are two key ways of achieving this. So one is with this term, adopting a mindset of situational humility. Learning a mindset that when you put into practice, you can really communicate to your employees that your bosses know that they don't have all the answers, right? It's this idea of the boss is not up here and the employees are down here, but that we are standing shoulder to shoulder, doing important work together. And the leader does not have all the answers. And that the other voices are needed in order to achieve whatever the organizational goal is. Where coaching really comes into play here is with engaging in proactive inquiry. There is a term called humble inquiry, where you're really asking and really thinking about the tone in which you're asking, by being curious and by actively asking employees in your organization, what you could be doing better, what could be done better. Right? What we want to stay away from is what we see a lot, which is when leaders will just speak to, these are all the changes that are going to be made, and spend 95% of the meeting just lecturing, and then leaving a very, very short amount of space at the end to ask, so does anyone have any questions or concerns? Right? And doing that in a way that is not curious, that is not humble, that is not empathetic, or leaving actual space for individuals to actually share what they're feeling or what they're thinking or their ideas, and that idea actually be discussed. So ways to invite participation and knowledge sharing includes maybe a focus group, or creating some cross-functional teams that are charged with solving a specific problem, peer-to-peer learning, a digital suggestion box. And I say digital because now it's very hard for us to actually set these things up in real life. And also organizing staff meetings, like I said before, that actually leave time for everyone's input and for that input to actually be discussed. right? And really watching our tone, and really thinking about our intention when we're asking these questions, that the intention is to actually receive feedback, to actually listen for ideas and respond to them, as opposed to just asking the question because you were told in a training that that's the question you should ask at the end. And then the third point is around responding proactively. So once you've set the stage, you have invited participation, you really have to think about how are you going to respond. A proactive response to feedback is always appreciative, is respectful, and offers a path forward. Right. And I always like to lead with always have people think about the contrast of this, right? When you have given a suggestion at work and it's not taken with appreciation, with respect, and there is no path forward. So we want to advocate for the opposite of that, right? With these three elements: appreciative, respectful, and offering a path forward. While not all new ideas are going to be implemented, of course, the goal of creating a psychologically safe environment is to ensure that employees know that their voices are important and that they matter, that they are important, that they are here investing their precious life force into companies where it's not just about getting a paycheck, it's about making an impact, making a difference. So perceptive leaders work with psychological safety on two levels. So one is that they're taking responsibility for building safety for their team, but they're also managing their own vulnerability as they continue to learn and grow in their changing role. So obviously I'm not asking leaders to air all of their dirty laundry out, but they also need to show themselves as a human being. Right? On the team front, right, leaders tend to create that what they can do is create a strong connection with their team members, right? Getting to know them as individuals, especially like getting to know what is their work style, what are their preferred work hours, what are their strengths, what are the areas that they need more development in, and what is important to them outside of work, right? Because people do have a life outside of work. Right? Leaders can also monitor teams and other interactions to ensure that everybody gets a chance to speak, to be heard, and to feel connected. That it's not just the loudest person in the room or the one person that always has the good ideas, or, to make sure that those who will normally not speak, you can actually call on them and make sure that those people are actually speaking up, because we don't know where the next amazing idea is actually going to come from. On the personal front, leaders may not have anyone other than their manager to really look out for them. So as a result, many leaders can have a mentor, or they can have an empathetic employee. And I've been that mentor, and I've been that empathetic employee who's willing to offer reverse mentoring for others. So you can set up your own network of individuals to create a safe space for you to experiment and practice new ways of working, new ways of creating positive, inclusive cultures where people feel like they belong. You can also consider it like you having your own working advisory board, or a safety brave board. And I mean, this is also the case for getting an executive coach and having someone, a professional, to help you look at your blind spots and help you set experiments to help you really create the best possible workplace culture and environment, where you can actually retain your employees and get the best of your employees, that they feel heard, happy, and valued. So then my question to you is really, what is your commitment to foster psychological safety? So with that question, I want to dive into a discussion with my panelists. my dear coaches, Leona, Massiel, and Shaunda, and ask them to go a little bit deeper into these topics. So I know I have Massiel and I have Shaunda on here. So Shaunda and Massiel, can I have you, can I see your beautiful faces?
All right.
Hi, Massiel. Hi, Shaunda.
Hello. Yeah, you're like, wait, how does this Zoom work again?
Here we are. So I know you ladies have done a lot of work within organizations in different ways. And so, especially for you, Massiel, I know that you were recently on a podcast for your hospital not too long ago talking about this very topic, but specifically around inviting participation. So, like, how important is that? Or can you even share with us like a personal story of just how important is it to really invite participation in the workplace?
So, first of all, thank you for having me here. But yeah, it's
My
extremely
pleasure.
important just because it's important because I think we've all been that one person in the room, right? There's a meeting happening, there's hierarchy, there's always that one person that speaks up and, they're the ones that get the first word in. And sometimes, when you don't think or you're not like fully confident that, you might be the one to have the right answers because you're not really sure if it's a psychologically safe space, you might be the one to start, your heart's beating, you want to speak up and there might be that like internal turmoil that you might be feeling. So as a person, as the leader that's, in the room, really inviting participation, we have to be very cognizant of the energy that we bring into the room, really checking out the whole room and seeing, who's not speaking up, who's being left out, who's not being heard. Also thinking about who is the person that has an opinion on this and who we might want to hear from. So it's not always, ideal to just kind of say, yep, I know the right way and just kind of charge at, whatever topic we're talking about. I think that's when people feel that, they're being told to do things or people might say voluntold if, you're being told, oh, this is what we're doing now. But if you're really inviting participation, you're really engaging your audience, bringing positive energy, just being, inquisitive and really showing that you actually care about what they have to say. And whenever I'm in a room that there feels like there's psychological safety, the conversation's always really rich.
Yeah, and you also feel like your body, like I can feel it in my body. Like I can put my shoulders down, I can actually breathe. Like this is a place where I love this term that you use, Massiel, where I can just be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. Shaunda, tell me, so Shaunda, what has been your experience with psychological safety in the workplace?
It's a great question, Clara. First of all, thank you for having me. Hello out there to all of you coaches and leaders globally. It's a pleasure to be here with you all and talking about this topic, which is so important. It is so important. Thank you, Clara, for having us.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, no, I have struggled with this, right? And I recently actually, I'm a new full-time entrepreneur, and similar to you, Clara, am that because I have been in spaces where I have not felt psychologically safe. And when I think about psychological safety, I think about this idea, just the basic ability to be able to be your authentic self, realize your version of success, and thrive or have a path towards thriving, right? In the place where we spend the majority of our waking hours. I mean, as adults, that is where we are awake. We spend the majority of our time, of our days at work. And if that place is, to Massiel's point, if it's causing you to be uncomfortable all the time and having to figure out ways, having to bend yourself through, all these hoops in order to, in order to be something that you're not, it's going to be continuously stressful and uncomfortable, and it's going to cause you to be physically and emotionally unwell. And we don't want that. And if your staff, if your employees are physically and emotionally unwell, then, your business is going to suffer. Your bottom line is going to suffer. And if you're an organization, the moving towards your overall vision and our mission is going to suffer. So when you focus on making sure that people feel as if they can bring their full selves to work, where they belong, they're included, not excluded, and have a path towards understanding their version of success and thriving, and they're able to contribute their diverse perspectives and opinions and abilities, unique talents and abilities, then you're going to have a thriving workplace environment and culture. And all of that takes intention. I've been a part of places and spaces where there was just no attention or intention put on making sure that you're creating an inclusive culture for all to thrive. And that caused me a lot of stress and caused me to be physically and emotionally unwell. And for that reason, I stepped out. And so my goal is to make sure, and what I do now is to make sure that others don't feel that way. Right. And so you have to focus on both organizations and companies and helping them to, build these spaces for folks to be psychologically safe, these psychologically safe environments. And then also to your point, what this is all about, right, is working with leaders to make sure that they're doing their self work and building their social awareness so that they can provide the space for folks to be not only psychologically safe, but successful in what they do. So yeah, that's a lot more than what you asked for, but
but Shaunda, thank you for that, because the one point that you made around doing their work, right? Like, so what does that look like? I work with a lot of leaders and, doing this executive coaching where I find myself doing so much of that internal work of self-awareness and unconscious biases. And sometimes even going back to their childhood to think about, like, where are you picking up these survival mechanisms that don't allow you to thrive or your people. So I'm wondering from the both of you, like, what does that look like? And I know Massiel does the leadership identity work. Like, where do you start? Like, we have, I feel we have this unique opportunity for everybody watching who is a leader to take this information back to their organizations and with their clients. Like, where do we start? Like, I take people back to their childhood, but I'm wondering if there are other ways, like Massiel and Shaunda, that you can impart on us today to do that inner work.
So the whole reason behind why I was so interested in leadership identity is because every single person has their own identity, right? But when we show up in these spaces where they're not fully psychologically safe, we look to see, okay, what's the identity that I need to take on in order to be successful, right? So then we build narratives in our mind and we start telling ourselves, you need to be like this because, you're, like Shaunda mentioned, your authentic self is not good enough. So you need to be like this. You need to look like this. Like, even I remember when I first took on my first director role about a decade ago, I felt that I couldn't wear my hair curly because no one in the room, had curly hair or looked like me. So I was like straightening my hair, and immediately, like, I didn't know that back then, but immediately I was trying to survive in a workplace that was possibly not psychologically safe. So we really need to pay attention to what narratives are we saying to ourselves in our head. And like Clara said, sometimes if you have to take it back to your childhood, if you have to take it way back, because I'm sure, Shaunda, with the work you do, we probably have inherited trauma, and, we all have our experiences that we bring. And like Clara said, we have our defense mechanisms, just the things that we do to keep ourselves safe. So really looking at the narratives and making sure that we can kind of, pay attention to them and acknowledge them, and then see, with a coach, obviously, it's a really, or a therapist, you could even work with a therapist, but really see how you can
or both.
Yeah, or both. Yes.
Yep.
But really see how you can turn that around and really build that self-awareness. So when you catch yourself in these patterns, you can really think about, okay, how would I like to be treated if I was in the audience and I wasn't the leader? If I had something to say, how could I speak up? Really be increase your level of empathy too is really important. Shaunda, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, yes to all of that, and where there's a will, there's a way. You really, us as coaches, we can't force anyone to do anything they don't want to do, right? Our goal is to help guide folks to, achieve their goals and to continuously grow and improve. But there has to be this will to want to work on yourself and understand that it's a never-ending process. You will never perfect self-awareness. And you will never perfect social awareness. But you can, commit to continuously learning, growing, and evolving in the best way possible to meet the circumstances that you're in and that are in front of you. And so, the way that I like to, especially when working with leaders, it's tough sometimes because to both of your points, people bring so much. I mean, they have a lived history, and there's a reason why they act or respond the way in which they do. It's taking that time to dissect what's at the root of those behaviors and those patterns, and helping folks to become aware that it's not unconscious, that they're aware, they're conscious of what's happening and how they're acting and what the impact is on other people, showing them, when you, like Massiel said, when you do this is the impact that it can have. Can you imagine if you were on the receiving end of that? How would you feel? Having some empathy. Hopefully that helps to then find ways to shift the behaviors and shift the actions to be able to, as a leader, create the space not only for each individual that you are in charge of leading to feel as if they are safe and to have a brave space, but also to think about how you're creating the space for everyone that you lead, for the entire groups or organizations that you lead, to have that feeling as well, that it is embedded in the culture. And the unspoken rule is, that you feel is that you can be your authentic self. You can bring your full self, that the way in which you show up and know how best to show up is matters, is important, and is needed and necessary here. So yeah, I mean, I think first it's more making sure that people are committed to getting better, to continuously growing and improving on the behavior change. And then, us as coaches, it's helping them to reach those goals, helping guide them to reach those goals.
I love what you said, Shaunda, around the willingness that needs to be there first and foremost, because we can't force anyone to want to change. Sometimes I've been brought into organizations where it's almost like here's Clara, here's this executive coach who's going to fix all of our problems and she's going to change the culture. And so if the willingness is not there, it could be said from the mouth out, right? But it's not really in the heart. So I'm wondering, have you ever ran into that where it's like the company, the leaders say that they want to change, that they want to be more inclusive, they want people to belong? Because I'm almost feeling that there's people listening to us that are saying, yeah, that's so true. Like what Massiel said, helping helping people think of like, what is the narrative that I'm telling myself? Like, why am I code switching? Why am I like not able to sit here and be my authentic self? Is that even possible somewhere? And like, I think the question that comes up for me is like, can we change hearts? Can we? Is that even possible if someone is just says like, you know what, like I got assigned this executive coach who's supposed to help me because I've been given feedback that I'm too rough. People don't feel included. They don't feel safe around me. Can we change hearts? That's my question to y'all. What do y'all think about that?
So I think it's possible with a little recalibration and kind of shifting, right? And really starting with why. Why are you even here? Why are you choosing to be a leader? What made you get all the degrees and go through all that trouble to just come here and make people inferior? Are you leading with fear or are you leading with love? So when you bring that self-awareness and you really get to the root of the why are you even here, then that's when people start thinking, oh, okay, I wanted to help people. That's like the common one everybody says.
Right.
I want to help, I want to grow others. Well, if you say it now, do you really mean it? And that's kind of, where you really catch someone in that, self-assessment. And they're like, oh, okay, I guess I am here for this. So, now I need to do the work. But the person has to be willing to do the work, but they have to be, it has to be compelling enough for the person to really want to change. And really the compelling piece comes with like helping them align with their vision, their values, and their purpose.
That's Massiel, that's what I love about us coaches. It's like, no matter what, we are not going to lose hope. And so I love your gentle, yet it's like gentle and direct approach to cracking a leader open that, may have been put in a position of saying like, you must change, to then want to internalize that change. Thank you for that, Massiel. How about for you, Shaunda? The big question is, can we change hearts and minds of those who at the heart, at their core, maybe don't see anything wrong with the way they're leading?
I think knowledge is power at the end of the day, right? So when you have self-knowledge, conscious self-knowledge, and we help people to see themselves, truly, authentically see themselves, that helps them. That's, you're not changing their heart. You're just telling them, you're just showing them the truth. You're just, allowing them to be tapped into what is, versus just moving through their day or moving through life. And even, I guess I might be a little bit more of a pusher, right? I don't know as a coach.
Push us, Shaunda.
Yeah, but I think and you may have those people that come to those leaders that say, I'm here because I want to make money. And there's nothing wrong with that, like if that's why you're there. But how do you also help them to understand that you could be making more money if people feel that they belong and are included and can bring their full selves and fully contribute to the success of the bottom of reaching the bottom line or whatever it may be. And so there's always a way to get to appeal to whoever's is in front of you, especially if they want to be a leader. The other thing that could happen is people, it's like I was pushed into this situation, I by default am leading others. And another thing that I also see a lot is you have people who are also they're in the toxic environment as well, right? They have to deal with a boss above them. They may be managing or leading a team, but they have someone else above them who is, holding this psychological unsafe environment in place. and expecting them to do the same. And so sometimes, the why could become, well, I have, at the end of the day, there's only so much I can do because there is a level above me that is truly holding this into place. And so there's what you can do as an individual, and you can get those folks to be able to see the truth, to be able to have the information, the facts in front of them, both on how they are acting and responding, and just what is, as far as the organization, the macro of what they're involved in is concerned. But then it could the changing or shifting of the culture and making sure that they're there to help folks feel psychologically safe could be in their hands, and their shifting of their behavior, or it could be out of their hands, and it's deciding, do you want to continue to perpetuate this unsafe environment, this psychologically unsafe environment, or say bye to it because it's not what is best for you and what is best for others, and you can use your time and your energy elsewhere in order to create psychologically safe environments for others.
Your point is like, when the system itself is toxic and the powers above are toxic, like this just generates more questions for me, right? How can we how can we help change that system, right? So one way is to get out of the system, which we have chosen to do, as three collectively have chosen to do, is getting out of the system so that we can make change, or what? Like, what else? What else is there? What else is possible?
Or you stay in the system and you commit to supporting the change, and and neither way there's no right or wrong way. I mean, I think what the way forward though is the best way is the fact that you're committing to shifting, to acting, to making things better. And so if you're able to, the fact that you're able to do that, you're committing to that, is beneficial to the environments that you're part of, no matter what. But it takes a different skill set. So it's understanding that also taps back into understanding yourself, understanding what your strengths are, why it is, like to Massiel's point, why it is that you are doing what you're doing, what it is that you love to do, or, how you want to contribute to this world, and being able to allow yourself to do that in the best way possible, in the way that's going to help your strengths come to life. So for some of us, that may be, really pushing incremental change within established organizations and institutions, and having the support system, having a coach, having, having a therapist, because it can be hard, it really could get hard. You just need someone to talk to through all of it in order to make that happen. Or you could be a person who, has your own ideas around how to shift from the outside in, and make things better in a different way, or implement your own ideas for making the world a better place. So again, I think all of it comes down to, true understanding of self and doing that constant work to be self-aware, understanding that it's never ending. It's a perpetual process. You're not going to perfect it, but you're going to, you can be in it and be intentional about being self-aware so that you are aware enough for the moment in time that you're occupying and the situations in which you're facing.
Being intentional about being self-aware, because it's a never ending. This is never ending. So maybe folks came here thinking, we were going to give them the pill, right? And the pill is that this is a never ending process, and that it really comes down to doing a lot of internal work. And like, as Massiel said, being open to understanding and always questioning the why, right? Why am I doing this work? So have you ever had an experience of working in a place where you actually felt psychologically safe? Or there was someone that attempted to create a psychologically safe space? And how did that look like?
So I can share that, when I was working in an organization, I have a background in healthcare. And as we all know, healthcare is a really tough place right now. And sometimes, as much as you try, remember we were talking about the, if the place, is toxic, how do you turn it around? So what I did was I, looked at everything as with the mentality of building a tribe. Your tribe has norms, your tribe has beliefs. Everyone that enters the tribe, is going to behave this way. We're a community. So I really tried to, really cultivate that culture. So when you are in a space where it's psychologically safe, most likely there's an undercurrent of a culture that's happening. So you really have to really try to cultivate that. And that takes a lot of work. Like in Clara's presentation early on, what are their kids' names? What do they do on the weekends? What motivates them? What do they care about? Did you say hello? Do you walk in with a smile? Are you making eye contact? Those are all things, that really contribute to a psychologically safe space. But then also, like, let's say there's a team, let's say there's equal teams, and one is psychologically safe and the other one isn't. You can look at outcomes, you can look at turnover, you can look at productivity, you can look at absenteeism. It's all there. And, it's kind of like the proof is what they say, the proof is in the pudding. It's like, these people are not leaving. There must be some kind of Kool-Aid that they're drinking, because they keep coming back to work every single day and they look happy. So you need to really, just bring it back to that human aspect, to create a psychologically safe space. Kind of thinking about, coming home, instead of going to work, it's like, hey, I'm coming home to my people. So definitely that's how I think of psychologically safe spaces.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Massiel. Creating a tribe-like mentality. And Shaunda, you as a specialist in decolonization, have you ever experienced an attempt of someone attempting to create a psychologically safe workplace?
I have been in situations where I have felt psychologically safe, and for me, that is a place where, you mentioned this before in your presentation, right, where we were allowed to question, we were allowed to assert our opinions. It was taken into consideration. We were able to work through things. It wasn't the end of the world if we disagreed with each other. We were able to disagree with each other, and we're using data and opinion and emotion in order to come to decisions, right? It wasn't absent of the fact that we're human and we're emotional beings. I think a lot of places, especially in like Western corporate America, or corporate Western corporate world, right? Like it's this idea that, in order to be professional, you can't be passionate, or you can't be, you can't be emotional, or display emotions. But, as much as we'd like to think that we are rational beings, at the end of the day, we are human, we are emotional beings. And so, that is what really helped me and worked for me, as far as, someone who has a lot of ideas, wants to be able to contribute in the best way that I can. And that's, that made me feel psychologically safe in the work. And I will add on to that, as far as feeling psychologically safe in the work, having multiple different types of avenues to contribute. So for me, I like to speak up in conversations. I'm not afraid to do that. But for a lot of people, that's not their primary way of engaging, they engage in different ways, offering those diversity of ways for folks, understanding who's on your team, to Massiel's point, right? Understanding people, So as long as there's the self-awareness, there's the awareness of your team members, of your colleagues, taking the time and to build trust, to build relationships. And trust isn't built overnight. It takes time. It happens over time, and it can be quickly broken. And also taking the opportunity when you do break trust to rebuild it, understanding that you're gonna have to take the time to rebuild it. So I've been in an environment where I felt I was able to contribute. If we got into disagreements, if trust was broken, we were able to engage in the processes to rebuild trust. Folks, took the time to acknowledge my strengths, acknowledge the strengths of others, and also took time to get to know me and respond to me, as a person in the best way that they knew how, and understood that was a never-ending process. They were always finding times to get to know me. We were always finding time to get to know each other and support each other. But
so
again,
that's so important to have that personal touch.
yes,
I think that's definitely something that I'm taking from this conversation for sure. So we have Leona joining us. She was able to join us, and so Leona is seasoned career coach and recruiter, and I wanted to bring her on because I thought that she might have a unique take on what should we be looking for, like if we're thinking of going into the workspace, around like how can I see if this is a psychologically safe place, as we're looking for like our next career move. So I wanted to bring Leona. And Leona, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So yeah, I mean, and hello everyone. I'm glad that I could make it. So in terms of the recruiting perspective, one of the things that I would work with my clients about is the fact that if you're going into a new place, you need to do your homework. You need to do the research. You need to really take the time to really do the research about the company it is that you're interviewing for. You want to check their mission statement. You want to look at their vision statement. Are there any things in there that speak to their diversity initiatives, their inclusion initiatives? You just want to kind of do all kind of that background stuff. And, the other thing I say too is, if you're able to, if they have an annual report that you can get access to online, take a look at that and see if they've got their diversity initiatives in there and how well they did with it. So there are things that you can do, to prepare. And then, one of the things that I tell my folks as well is to, when you're asking questions, how the interview is interactive and the interviewer will ask you, do you have questions? One of the major questions, especially when you think about psychological safety, is you want to ask the question, can you tell me a little bit about, or, what is what's the best way that you can explain your corporate culture?
That's a good question.
What, do you have any, diversity groups? Do you have any teams or projects that are going on where you're speaking inclusion and where you are, talking about different programs and you're allowing your employees to have input, because you want to make sure that whatever they do, there's a team approach, that, people are included, they have some part in making decisions. Something as simple as with some of these projects and teams, is the facilitator rotated? I mean, that might sound simple, but it gives people the opportunity to have a part and to have a seat at the table and everyone's included. It's not just the manager, director, or whomever, but all of the individual contributors as well, can be a part. And people, they feel like they're really involved. They have a place, they're being heard, they're being included. And you can't ask for anything more. And, the other thing, I was doing some research about this subject, and it speaks to the fact that in a culture where they're inclusive and diverse, your productivity rates are much higher.
Yeah.
So if you're and that's of course where you want to be, that's psychological safety right there. You want to be in a place where you've got high performing teams, because they're included. Everyone has a part of the decision making, even when it comes down to, hiring staff on the team members should have a piece in the interview process. You should be, as one of the employees who's already there, you should have the opportunity to interview anybody that potentially is coming into the department. So
Leona,
again, I'm sorry,
no,
I could go on and on.
No. I was just gonna say that's those are really good insights. Like as a sign to see, like, is this a psychologically safe workplace when employees are part of the interview process? That's something I really didn't think of it that way. And also being able, like you said, to look at their mission, their vision,
Right.
and the annual report. And then you wanted to add something else before I interrupted you.
Let's see, what was I gonna talk about? No, I think I kind of covered most of what I was gonna say, but I mean, I was talking about the productivity, on the team, and how, just if people are included, and then, the opportunity to share your creativity juices with the team, and not feel, and you probably covered some of this, but not feel like, people won't appreciate what I bring to the table, or maybe they'll look at me and say, wow, what's she talking about? But, just the whole piece around, being able to share, to contribute, to provide, and feel good about that, and not feel like if you do those things that you're going to be looked down upon, or that nobody even values what you're saying and what you're contributing.
Leona, I also
sense.
for the companies that are the folks who are business owners that are listening to us, that question, like they should be ready to answer that question when someone comes to interview them. That question around, how would you describe your company culture?
Right. Absolutely. And and as a business owner, you really need to be prepared to answer that question, and part of, what you're going to stand for, or, your mission, your vision, you want to make sure that you include those DEI things so that it'll attract people to want to come and work for you.
Yes.
So.
Massiel, Shaunda, do you have anything else to add around company readiness, or things that we can look for in a company that showcases the possibility of psychological safety in that organization?
I mean, I think that, if you're talking about business owners or people who control setting the culture, right? Who have culture is going to form no matter what, right? Whether you can have culture with a really strong charge or pull, and you can have culture with a really weak charge or pull. At the end of the day, it's still a culture. It'll form whether you're intentional about it or not. But as someone who is the ultimate decision maker, so whether you're the chief executive or on the executive team, or you are, a part of the governance structure of an organization or company, understanding that creating you can be proactive, and that, I mean, we talk about being proactive, right? You can be, and it talks about it's action. In the word proactive is being proactive, action. You're taking, you're acting, and so you have to act and set the tone and set the culture for it to be a place where folks feel psychologically safe. And so when Leona talks about, making sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion are built into the fabric of how things are done, you have to be intentional of that from the beginning. And if it's a new in culture, if it's a startup, right, or organization or whatever, it's going to be easier to build it in from the beginning and know that it should be baked into the fabric of how you do things, so that you can create the environment, and that you're actively working on it all the time, so that you create an environment where folks are psychologically safe. But if a culture has evolved, if it's an established organization or institution, and you didn't have that, you weren't intentionally focused on that from the beginning, it's going to be a little tougher, but you're going to have to really go in and shift, turn around the culture. But either way, it's going to take work and intention. And then the other thing, as far as like looking for organizations that are going to allow you to feel safe, to be able to be brave, to be able to bring your full self, things work for different people. And we talk about finding your tribe. And, this is tough because we want to create space where all are welcome and all can thrive. And also there are each organization or company is focused on something specific, right? So, understanding that there's going to be some things that are just, will never, that are what they are and will never shift. And if it isn't in line with what you want to do with your waking hours, the majority of your waking hours where you spend spend your day as an adult, then, that shouldn't be the case. But as far as you shouldn't acknowledge those things or step away from, kind of discount those industries or those organizations. But for the organizations where it does speak to what you want to be and what you want to do, then you're looking into, okay, is this a place that's going to allow me to bring my perspective to the table? That's going to not only allow me to bring my perspective to the table, but is going to consider it, going to take it into consideration when making decisions. It's going to, acknowledge when I contribute to something. You have a lot of times, some of us leave organizations because, we've contributed, but it's never been acknowledged that we're contributing to making the place a success. So that's a lot, but I mean, thinking about your role as an employer, and leaders within organizations, and then also your role in taking care of yourself as an individual and finding those places that are best suited for you, where you're going to be psychologically safe. We all have a responsibility in setting psychological safety in the workplace.
We all have a responsibility, right? From the leader to the employees. Massiel, you wanted to share something before we're going to turn it over soon to
Sure, yeah. Sorry, I was muted when I was trying to speak earlier, but I think just thinking about the organization overall, it really starts with the leadership, the CEOs, the C-suite, going down to the chiefs and all those things. You really have to model behavior, because if you really look at the employee, they're really looking for their leaders and they want to model, they want to be in that. So you really have to think about, am I just talking the talk, or am I also like walking doing what I'm saying, what I'm preaching? Am I creating a place where others can extend an invitation to the person that has normally, stayed quiet or not participated or not been acknowledged? So I think, as an employer, as an organization, it really starts with leadership, and really having that executive support is really important. If you really want to move your organization or your company forward into becoming a psychologically safe space.
Yeah. Leona, did you want to make one last point before, and then after Leona, we're going to hand it over to questions from the audience.
Okay, sure. Yeah. And Massiel actually took the words out of my mouth. I was going to talk about modeling the behavior as a leader. So thank you for putting that out there. But One of the other things I wanted to just say, and I don't know if you guys talked about this, but, one of the things that I also advise clients to do too is when you're going on an interview to just kind of be your authentic self. Don't try to go in there some other kind of way. You've got to be you because that's what they're going to get. And you shouldn't have to change up, whether it be a hairdo and obviously you're going to be a professional, but we all have our own uniqueness about us, and you ought to show up in the best way that you're comfortable, your authentic self, and don't shy away from that. Because I've had people who've asked, should I wear my braids? Should I do something with my hair, or should I change it? Should I do this, that, and the other thing? Nope. Be your authentic self. And guess what? When you're in the interview, you'll know whether or not people are going to embrace you, because the body language will tell a lot. So
the body language never lies. Yes. Thank you, Leona.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Lisa, so we want to open it up for some questions from the audience.
Lots of great questions. So I'll try to pick 2 or 3, but kind of just going off what was just said here at the very end, how it does go from the top down. But Kemi is asking, how do you get leaders to own the role they play in creating a psychologically safe environment versus what they believe the people need to do?
Wow. I mean, that first point, I just want to just say the first point is the leader sets the stage.
Yes.
The leader sets the stage. It's like, you cannot tell someone, be candid. This is an honest place. This is a safe, brave space, when you're not doing that yourself. So it's ineffective.
Yeah.
Massiel, do you want to chime in?
I mean, it's very hard to manage up when you're the employee, right? You can definitely give feedback, but there's always that fear of retaliation, having a target on your back if you feel that you have the right way. But I think that's why there's exit interviews and many other ways to get feedback, and also requesting just like speaking up about your needs. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't really change the whole environment through the leader, you can actually speak up about what it is that you need to be successful. And really just by having the leader be more hyper aware of the needs of the employees, that can start to shift a little bit more.
So for us as coaches, then what I hear you saying is that we can kind of help them be a little bit more aware and maybe ask some questions on what they're seeing and noticing. I do totally agree. It's from the top down. It's always difficult when the top isn't aware. So Josephine is asking something. Pardon, I'm sorry.
And you know what? I wanted to say one quick thing too. As coaches, Lisa, I mean, I think that, and we realize this, that lots of times leaders don't really know what it is that they're missing, and sometimes they have to kind of assess themselves and see where they're at. And maybe they're missing something that they need to add to their toolbox in helping these leaders, to do what they need to do to make the environment safe. So, yeah.
Right.
This one kind of goes along with that. They're asking you hard questions today, ladies. This one is Josephine. She is asking, in your experience, how have you handled narcissistic leaders?
Shaunda, can I call you on that one?
Yeah. As an individual, as being led by a narcissistic leader, at the end of the day, you can't change people, right? People need to want to be able to change themselves. The only thing you can control is your actions and reactions. And so a part of, we talk about leaders knowing thyself and knowing and, getting to know and build relationships with their employees. It's also your job as an employee to know yourself and know and understand your colleagues and your leaders, right? And so, when it gets to a point where there's the managing up, there's all the things that you can do, right? But when it gets to a point that there's nothing, you're spending more energy trying to shift or change a person who needs more help than you're able to give, then it's beyond your wheel of influence or whatever it may be. As far as the coaches supporting, helping people to get beyond themselves and have empathy for the people that they lead, and that they're that they're in charge of taking care of, right? I mean, that's a part of leadership. Sometimes you got to get really deep into what's driving that. Sometimes it could be something that's beyond your scope, and you need some more deeper clinical help. If it's something that is something that you feel as if something you can get to, it's about getting deep and getting to the root of what's driving that narcissistic behavior, the behavior that's focused on, that's not taking into consideration what's happening with others, and really just driven by what is, could be a survival mechanism for an individual. So how do you get beyond that, and really help people to see that even, but that by focusing on and caring for others and having empathy for others, it'll help you in the success in your role in your job. It'll help everyone. It'll help the entire environment, especially for you as a leader who controls that environment and controls what happens. Has a big, heavy hand in controlling and setting the tone. So that's my 2 cents. But yeah. I'm just one person, but it's
so, I've experienced working with a narcissistic leader myself, and I to just piggyback on what Shaunda said, like, I don't feel like one person can't really change another. It's more of like, I can support you in your willingness to want to change, because you see that the way you've been is rendering results that you don't like. I personally decided to quit, but there's been times in my work as a coach where I wonder if maybe I should have gone to therapy, to become a clinical therapist, because there are times where, that's what people need. And I have a roster of therapists that I refer my clients to, because sometimes it is really beyond what we can do as coaches. I fundamentally don't believe that you can change someone who doesn't want to change.
And going right with that, another question here from Kat
Okay.
is, how does this model support people who continually bring the victim mind to the table? Organizations work with people of all cultures, backgrounds, and mindsets. The most challenging one that a manager leader faces is the one who has that victim mindset that really needs individualized support. How do we work with that?
So, it sounds like everyone has something to say about this, but I just want to throw in the idea of developing self-awareness, and maybe providing some tools to help that person become self-aware and see that maybe this victimhood, playing the victim, right, might be a survival mechanism, but maybe the person doesn't know that. They're unconscious of that. And so for the manager, the leader, to provide some form of, like, we use positive intelligence to help a person assess, like, the victim as a possible saboteur, a mechanism that you have been developing to survive, to help them see that for themselves and hopefully move beyond that. That is one way. Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to chime in?
I agree. I think, that I go straight to positive intelligence as well, and have, the victim being a saboteur, way folks, a survival mechanism, the way folks respond to how to get through the world because of their past and their upbringing, or, the trauma that they've experienced in life. And I'll say it again, I believe knowledge is power, right? So knowledge of self is power. And some people are walking through life unconsciously acting and doing things. And so when you're able to help make the unconscious conscious, that's knowledge that folks that are readily available to folks that they didn't have before, and they can make decisions based off of that. As far as a manager is concerned, or a leader is concerned, again, similar to what we're talking about as being coaches, and there's only so much that we can do. There's only so much that you can do as someone who is leading others. And then you have to lean on a support system, of some, in some way, shape, or form. And my suggestion would be to build that support system, that network where you can refer folks to certain things, and or where you can go within your organizational structure, or if you are the ultimate leader within the organization, you are building that within your organizational structure, so that when these issues do arise, and you have these special circumstances, that you can you have the specialist on your team that you can refer folks to deal with the human beings that you employ. They're human beings, they have needs. So I don't know if that's an these are
building
tough
that
questions.
network. Yeah. I mean,
Can I just add one thing about that? I think as a leader, when you are dealing with, narcissistic behavior, or even, folks that, might always play the victim and things like that, I always encourage, the leader to make sure that they're having a one-on-one with their employees, because that's where you build trust, and you build that individual safe space. In those one-on-ones, you can really get to the why of like the behavior, but then also you can get to the bottom of the actual need. What is it that this person really needs to succeed? What is it that they want, and why do they keep doing this? So once you really uncover the need, that kind of just opens up different possibilities, avenues.
I love that. What's the need? I lastly want to say too, a tool that I use a lot with leaders is for the leaders to actually learn how to coach. If a leader can really learn the coaching skill and not do it haphazardly, they can be so much more effective in really helping folks get over those saboteurs, or those survival mechanisms, like playing the victim, or any other form of saboteurs that may be showing up for them.
One of the things I wanted to just add real quickly is that, so not so much from a leadership perspective, but from a team member's perspective, having somebody on your team who's always playing the victim. And Lord knows I've been there lots of times. And, we would recognize that this person is that. And, I've been on some great teams where we would just kind of come together and embrace that person, and say, what is it that you need? How can we help you? Because we're noticing that, you've got this feeling going on. Let's work together. We can help you. We're all in this together, and we want to succeed together. So as a team, if you notice that behavior, you really, if you're a real cohesive team, you'll work together to try to make something different happen.
I've heard that Leona, as hold them and rock them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's not a symptom, but that's an effect of a psychologically safe team,
That's
an
right.
environment.
That's right. That's
where
right.
you have that. Right. So if you have, as a leader, if you have that culture built up, you have those team members to be able to lean on and to pick up the pieces where you're unable to. Yeah.
Great point.
I heard you ladies mention a moment ago that somebody said one-on-one is that trust. And somebody had mentioned in there that trust is one-on-one, psychological safety is the team. That it takes those two pieces together. I'm getting ready to close this out, but I want to give you an opportunity. Is there any last thing that you would like to say before I do my stuff?
I mean, I want to give my my panelists a chance to say anything before I close out.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
Just thank you. Thank you also
Yeah.
very much. It's been a pleasure to be here. And yeah, it's been, and this is an important topic, definitely an important topic, and worth continuing to have the discussion beyond the space. So hopefully you're able to take a nugget. I know that I have been able to, to continue to have a conversation.
I want to,
and thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry, I want to
thank you.
No, it's okay. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for sticking with us for this whole 90 minutes. I want to thank Beth for supporting us with all the logistics, and Lisa, thank you for hosting, and my dear panelists, thank you so much for contributing. Thank you so much. And I just want to, my last word to anyone listening is that every single day we wake up, to go to work, to make a difference. And so at the bottom of that is really love, to everything that you do to infuse love into it, because more than ever, we need people to do things in the spirit of love, no matter where you sit in the organization. And thank you so much for listening today. And I hope that you can carry forward your commitment to psychological safety.
Thank you so much. An amazing, awesome session. As I've heard you say, this is something we don't just talk about once, but we take it with us. And I love what you're saying about love. There just is not enough of that right now. The energy is so negative. If we have coaches can make a little difference, even that's so important. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you,
everybody. An unbelievably engaging session today. Thank you, ladies, all of you, so much for being here. So as you know,
you're welcome.
WBEX is a coach-created organization, meetings. And so with that, we can continue providing you with services that you love. We're going to be sharing a survey at the very end. We would love for you to fill that out. Please take a few moments. It doesn't take long, but we really look at that input. We look at that when it comes time to the full summit, and that way we can look at sessions that you guys are asking for. So please make sure you do that. Today's survey will automatically pop up as soon as we leave the Zoom webinar. So thank you again, Clara and Clara Angelina Diaz. And that brings us to the end of today's session. Before we go, I just want to very quickly run through how you can keep this conversation going. As many of you know, we have a new exclusive WBEX community, which we launched this last year during the pre-summit. You now have an exclusive full summit area with the community, and that you can go there. It's a safe place where you can connect with other coaches around the globe, engage with full summit sessions and content, share knowledge, and learn about what's going on in the world of coaching. We have a dedicated post there to discuss Clara Angelina Diaz's session, and we are dropping that link right now into the chat. So make sure you go there. Now, this is some exciting news. Clara Angelina Diaz will be dropping into the community over the next 24 to 48 hours to answer any questions that you have brought in from today's session. And so make sure that you go there, because there'll be lots of questions. You guys had tons of them. And Beth will drop the link to the specific post where you can ask those questions again in the chat box. If you're not locked into the community, then you'll need to log into the WBEX members area first, and then you'll be able to access it. So the next important thing to mention is our implementation mastery sessions, our IM sessions. The IM sessions related to today's presentation will take place 30 minutes after the end of today's session, and also on next Tuesday. We offer these sessions in multiple languages, and the languages that you can join the IM sessions today are Arabic and English. You can sign up for the IM sessions by clicking the link, you know it, in the chat box. Wonderful opportunity to continue this conversation. And finally, please remember to submit your feedback on this session via the survey that will pop up as soon as you leave. Now, your next opportunity, the next session, will be with Yannick Jacob, Thursday, 27 of January at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Coaching demo, existential coaching, why the big question matters. With that, I want to say thank you again, ladies. It has been a pleasure. So much wonderful information. Thank you to all of you who have joined us today. We look forward to seeing you in another WBEX webinar here soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.